Hi, I'm Patrick Jaguar, the Cosmic Alchemist. My site is thecosmicalchemist.com, and welcome to my June 2020 astrological forecast. And just a quick note, this is a Vedic astrological forecast, so it's different from the Western astrological, so the two are about 23 degrees, almost a full sign off, so they don't correspond, one for one. So just to let you know, if you've seen other forecasts or if you've had readings done and it doesn't match up, that's the reason why. So let's get into this. I've got a lot of information for you today, and I'm going to keep this as concise as possible, but it's not an easy reading to do. So let's get into it. So June is definitely going to be an interesting month. It's a critical time. It's an intense time, and it's gonna be a lot of angry feelings this month. And really, it's building to some kind of a crisis. I don't want to give a reading, saying so if I don't have to, but it's what's in there, and I have to be honest about what I see. So I'm gonna kind of go through this planet by planet, kind of do this broadly, then I'll go into some dates. So Mars is a key player here. Mars is a big player not only in June, but in July, and then even getting into early 2020. So Mars has been in Gemini since May. And so Mars is a planet of vitality, action, even violence, anger. Anger is a big one. It's going to be a big theme we're going to keep hitting here. And Gemini is a constellation of a sign of its trade, travel, communication especially. So it doesn't take an astrologer to tell you that there's been a lot of angry communication in May and then now getting into June. So you're seeing it around you. Now, in addition to this Mars and Gemini, we have a mutual aspect. So it's what Western astrologers call opposition. So basically, Mars and Saturn are directly across the zodiac from each other. And so they're opposing each other. They're looking directly at each other. Now, Mars is also conjunct with Rahu. So Rahu is just within a few degrees. And so Rahu is basically, it's a shadow planet. It's not a physical planet, but it's a shadow planet. And it's basically the eclipse of the moon. So Rahu is all about not seeing things clearly and being obsessed with things. And there's an aspect of delusion to it too. So the full moon and the new moon, the coming full moon and new moon, will definitely intensify this Mars and Rahu conjunction. Like I said, because Rahu is the eclipse, so it's all about, Rahu is all about sort of covering and shading the moon, and the moon is a symbol for the mind. The soul is the sun, and the moon is the mind. So the moon reflects the sun's light, or the mind. So not just the intellect, but the consciousness, intuition, emotions, everything. Mind reflects the sun's light. So, and the thing about Rahu too is Rahu expands a planet's energy, so it's going to expand Mars's anger, Mars's violence. Now, getting back to Mars here, Mars will set the stage for the July 2nd solar eclipse. And the reason for this is because Mars will cross 16 degrees of Gemini. So it's in Gemini. It's going to cross 16 degrees of Gemini June 1st through June 2nd. And so basically the idea here is that you have 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after an eclipse, you're in an eclipse period. And so astrological events that happen near, like on or around the eclipse point, will sort of act as triggers for the eclipse. So they'll make the eclipse more intense, because eclipses are sort of events that kind of they sort of set the stage for events, and they release potential energy for events to happen. So they trigger behaviors in people, and eclipses trigger events to happen. So Mars is going to cross the 16th degree of Gemini, June 1st, June 2nd, and that's going to turn it into kind of a flashpoint and a hot spot for the solar eclipse. So when the sun gets there and eclipses on July 2nd, that is really going to unleash some events, some behaviors in people. And so, got my news anchor notes here. And so, again, July 2nd eclipse. So Mars is priming it. And this eclipse is going to catalyze events that we're going to be dealing with for a good while, into February, I'd say, February 2019, and even for several years to come. So this is going to be a big deal. Definitely keep your eyes peeled. February 18th through the 21st, 2020, we're going to feel what's going to happen this summer in February. It might even take till February for these events to really come to a head and develop, these summer events. So then we've got Mars conjunct with Mercury very closely. And then, so Mars is conjunct with Mercury. They're sitting right next to each other. And again, they've got Saturn looking directly at them from across the zodiac. So whenever you get Mars and Saturn together, so whether it's a conjunction, whether they're in the same sign close together, or they're aspecting or opposing and they're looking at each other across the zodiac, you get setbacks, you get frustration, you get conflicts, because Mars and Saturn they both deal with, Mars is violence, frustration, anger, and Saturn is a delayer. It sets back, it withholds things from you. So, you've got Saturn across from Mars, and then you've got Mars again with Mercury and Rahu. So Mercury, it's all about communications, trade, travel, transportation, connecting with others, and Rahu's a magnifier. So whatever planets Rahu sits with, Rahu just magnifies those things, makes them more intense, just expands the energy. So, what we're going to see here, in June, and then, June's going to set the stage for July, and that's going to make the rest of the year, and it's going to set the stage for 2020. So here in June, we're going to have messed up communications. So not just electronic, but between people. So be careful what you say. If you don't intend to piss someone off, watch what you're saying. If you intend to do it, well, do what you're going to do. But, just be aware, your tongue may get away from you if you're not attentive. Or your fingers if you're typing or writing. So, Rahu with this Mars, Mercury, Rahu conjunction all close together. Rahu is the internet, it's IT, it's electronics. And Mercury and Gemini are transportation, trade, travel, communication. So the way I read this, I think we're going to have some travel setbacks in June. Maybe travel strikes. We've seen this with Uber, where the drivers are striking. It's in the news right now. They're saying long hours, high risk. You're out in traffic for several hours a day, and they don't feel like they're getting the pay and the benefits, that they deserve. I'm not going to have that debate. But, I can see where they're coming from. I feel for them. So, it's tough all over for pretty much most people right now. So, and then again, relating to this Mars, Mercury, Rahu, Mercury and Gemini and Rahu also pertain to and symbolize computers and IT. So when you mix Mars with Gemini, Mercury, and Rahu, to me, you get some hacking, some cyber warfare, in the IT and the internet world, because of the associations of Gemini and Mercury with travel and transportation. You may see a hacking of some travel transportation information system. So maybe an airline server, an airline computer system, maybe even the FAA systems, like the flight control systems. You could have planes in the air without the computer guidance. I hope not, but looks like something like that. And so basically the takeaway from this: transportation chaos. And it's not a great time for written communication in your business, or drawing up contracts and signing contracts, because those are all forms of written communication. So if you can put that stuff off, I'd say definitely do. At least don't initiate big business communications and business contracts. But you got to do what you got to do sometime. So we have, as I was saying, Mercury, Rahu, Mars are being aspected by Saturn from across the zodiac. So Saturn across the zodiac there in Sagittarius is conjunct with Ketu, also with Pluto. So Ketu is basically, it's another shadow planet. It's sort of the partner of Rahu, and it's like a being that has no sense of self, and it's kind of on its good day, it's like a monk, and it doesn't have an agenda, it doesn't have desires, and it just wants to help people. On a bad day, K2 is basically like a terrorist suicide bomber, like a serial killer. It's someone who they're obsessed with kind of their version of the truth and having things their way, and they just want to do away with things that they don't see as useful or meaningful or even right and righteous and holy and all that stuff. So, and then Pluto's a wrecking ball. So the outer planets, like Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, they're not part of Orthodox Vedic astrology, but I factor them in because I think the outer planets past Saturn have to do with generational sort of events, so events of gravity. So anyway, so in Sagittarius, across from Gemini, we have Saturn, Ketu, and Pluto all together. So Sagittarius is all about belief systems. Religion's part of this. And, these days religion can be anything. Some people worship, their money, their status, their house, whatever. So whatever you put your beliefs in, to me, Sagittarius represents. So you have what I see here. So in Sagittarius, we've got Saturn, Ketu, and Pluto. So across from them, looking back, we've got that Mars and Rahu looking over from Gemini. So what I see here with this Saturn, Ketu, and Pluto being looked at by Mars and Rahu, we have anger and discord around belief systems. So that's going on right now. People are worked up about their belief systems, and Sagittarius, religion falls under Sagittarius. So we could see an increase of terrorist activity. So I'd say definitely Islamic because it's religiously motivated, but even some other people being driven by their beliefs. But Islamic terrorism hasn't gone away. The news has been downplaying it, but it's still there, and you're gonna see some more. And it's like I said, K2 is like a fanatic, terrorist, a suicide bomber, and it's because K2 is selfless. People praise other people a lot for being selfless, and honestly, when I hear someone being praised for being selfless, I cringe, because life is about you. It's about what you want to do with yourself and what life you want to have. You have to be responsible, and you can't walk all over people and burn people and use people, but you have to know what you want, and you have to go for it. Otherwise, you're miserable and everyone around you is miserable. So a suicide bomber is not a happy person. A fanatic's not a happy person because they have no sense of themselves, and they're just, everything they do is about this cause or this belief or these other people they have to save, and it's just, you know, it's not a good deal. So, and now another thing here with, you know, you've got Saturn and Ketu in Sagittarius, the sign of belief systems. This is making people extremely self-righteous, opinionated. It's making them myopic. They can't see anything outside of their belief system. So people are just getting more and more polarized. And, you know, this is a lot like the time leading up to the Civil War, you know, because there were only two ways. For people back then, there were two ways, or people who engaged in the whole conflict anyway, whether, you know, in the war ideologically, there were only two ways to live. And it's like, are there really only 2 points of view in the entire world? Is there really only a Republican and a Democratic, or a right and a left point of view? That's just ridiculous. So our self-righteousness is coming to a fever pitch here. And so, but, you know, this can't last forever. You know, our definitely political and religious leaders are playing into this. They're polarizing people more and more. They're pitting people against each other. You know, you wonder at times if they want us to start fighting each other. So, but the good thing here, Saturn and Ketu and Sagittarius have Pluto with it. So Pluto is the, you know, once in a generation or once in a few generations wrecking ball. So Pluto is going to be a wrecking ball for these belief systems, for, you know, religious fanaticism, and especially for this whole left versus right paradigm. You know, it's really a pissing contest. It's not getting us anywhere. People think that we just need to keep embracing it and, you know, elect the right people who buy into it, but we've been doing that for years, and, you know, where is that getting us? You know, it's the definition of insanity is just doing something over and over and expecting a different result. So, you know, Pluto is going to help us with that. So Pluto is going to be the wrecking ball, and it's going to get us, through our own polarization and our bickering with each other, to start dissolving and breaking down these polarizing belief systems, these us versus them belief systems. You know, the crazy thing about these belief systems is whatever side I'm on is the right one, and the people who disagree with me are definitely wrong. That's narcissistic too. So we've had this built-in narcissism for a long time, and really this goes back to, you know, the Roman Empire forcing, you know, Christianity on our ancestors. You know, so you're either with God or you're with the devil. You know, we've been dealing with this a long time, and that's really what the Age of Pisces was all about. You know, Christianity is the religion of the Age of Pisces. It's dualism. So that's on its way out. You know, every religion gets about 2,000 years to, you know, to do its thing and to have its glory days, and then it goes bye-bye. So polarization's on the way out, but people aren't going to go quietly. They're going to kick and scream, but, you know, if people want to go with it, they can. And I think people are going to, you know, you'll see people having meltdowns over this stuff, and, you know, maybe worse. So, but anyway, so this polarization, this us versus them, left versus right belief system is crumbling and dissolving, and something new is going to be born out of all this. You know, and something, you know, I have to acknowledge here is that everyone on all sides, they want peace and happiness and unity and contentment, and they want all this good stuff, but, you know, they all want it their way, especially unity. You know, the way people treat unity is that, you know, when everyone agrees with me and my side, then we're going to have unity. And if you don't agree with us, then you're against unity. But, I mean, give me a break. You know, because the people on the other side are saying the exact same thing. They're saying that, well, everyone needs to agree with us so we can have unity. If you don't agree with us, you're against unity. So that's nonsense, and that's going away. You know, people think, especially intellectual, academic-minded people, think that they've beaten Christianity, they've beaten Judeo-Christianity, and it's gone to the dustbin. They're still part of it, and they're extremely faithful to it. So it hasn't gone anywhere. So, you know, our, each side thinks that they're, the good side, and the other side is the evil side. And, reality just doesn't work that way. So this crisis that's coming about, definitely this June, July crisis, and leading into February, this will bring about unity. This will teach us to stop bickering. It'll teach us that we have much more in common than we believe, and it'll teach us to come together. I'm not sure exactly what the nature of that's going to be, because there are some interesting things going on here where there's some similarities in the astrology to September 11th, 2001. One thing that's going on here is that there's this whole thing in astronomy and astrology of declination. I don't want to get into it, but basically Mars is out of declination. It's about 23 degrees out, and it's going to be about 23 degrees out of declination. So that's called an out of bounds planet. So we've got about 23 degrees. I think on 9/11, 2001, Mars was something like 27 degrees out of bounds. So, Mars hasn't been this far out of bounds since then. So we're coming back. So, 9/11 brought about a certain amount of unity, but there was a lot of baggage that came with it. So I certainly hope we don't have that kind of baggage to come with this newfound unity. So, and this Mars out of bounds it's anger through the roof, and so we're getting back to that point. So we're gonna see what happens here. All right, now I was talking about Saturn and Pluto. Saturn and Pluto are going to conjoin. They're going to be right on top of each other in January 2020. And so really, by January 2020, the wrecking ball of these belief systems in Sagittarius is really going to be strong. So getting back to the solar eclipse on the 2nd of July, this solar eclipse is going to help bring about global transformation, and it's definitely going to affect the 2020 elections, because politics is a belief system. Politics is really a religion. I think people stopped going to church, and they bought into politics and political news much more. I think, to me, the Republican and Democratic parties are the aristocracy in the church from the Middle Ages, because they're these two, they appear to be fighting each other, but they need each other. You know what I mean? Because if you try to be a third party person, you threaten both of them, then they become fast friends and they go after you, so, and they ridicule you and, boot you off stage if you're a third party candidate. And that's how the church and the aristocracy were in the Middle Ages. And people didn't want to deal with any of them. They'd get together and they'd have a crusade and an inquisition, and they'd chase your ass down. So, that's the way I see it. It's like the church in the old days was like, they made it like they were all about the people, and they were selfless, and they wanted to help people. But they stayed relevant because people were miserable. So, it's the same with the Democratic Party, is they feed off of people being miserable, and then, just like the church did in the Middle Ages. And then, in the Middle Ages, the aristocracy used to tell people they wanted to help them preserve their traditions, because there were all these folk traditions in Europe. And the Republicans use the same line today, the Republican leaders, and they say, those leftists are going to destroy your traditions. So it's the same thing over and over. People just dump the church, and they put all their faith into politics. So politics is a religion. So Saturn and Pluto and K2 are going to wipe those belief systems out. It won't be fun getting there, but it'll help our evolution for sure. All right, so kind of a recap of the stuff I was saying. The next 3 months will definitely set the stage for 2020. It's going to be a hot summer. You know, when Mars is in the condition it's in, you know, Mars out of bounds, aspected by Saturn, you know, looking at Saturn, you get hot summers. So it's going to be a hot summer, an intense summer, be an angry summer. It'll set the stage for 2020. And then this solar eclipse on the 26th of December 2019 will preclude some major events in February 2020. So you're going to have the July. So with this whole eclipse thing, you've got Mars in Gemini, 16 degrees. That's going to kind of light the fuse. And then the July eclipse is going to make some explosions. And then the December eclipse is going to make them even bigger. And then things will really come to a head in February. And I'd say February 18th to the 21st, just looking ahead at the charts. And so look at February as a culmination point for this summer. So economics is a big thing here because of Gemini and Mercury, and you know, having Mars with Mercury and Rahu in Gemini. So economic fear is definitely building. You know, in the news we've seen that the 3-month the Treasury bill is outperforming the 10-year Treasury bill. So you know, it's an investment you can buy. You can buy government, you know, Treasury bonds. You know, U.S. Department of the Treasury bonds. Usually the long term pays out more. So this was something that happened in 2008 before the speculative economy went sideways, you know, because all these people were speculating on other people's mortgages. So we've got that going on again. So there's this warning sign in the bond market. So I don't see a crash coming, but I definitely see a transformation, you know, and kind of a painful one, to be honest. But you know, it's not a crash. We have to move on to something different, you know, and things will be volatile. You know, some things will soar and some things will crash. You know, if you were, you know, even in rough times, people still make money. It's like if you were a big investor during the New Deal who lent money to the government so they could run all those social programs, you made a lot of money back because the government promised you, as an investor, promised you a return on your money. So, you know, New Deal provided a lot of sweetheart investments for big investors. Not a lot of people know that. And then if you were part of the arms industry in World War II, you made a killing. So, you know, there you go. I'd say look out for crypto because, you know, the whales, the big investors, are going to look for places to run and hide. And, you know, they try different things. They get creative. Or not creative, but they mix things up and they diversify. Definitely some trade problems here. You know, we have, again, we've got Mercury conjunct with Rahu and Mars. So Mars being violence, volatility, anger, frustration. Rahu expands all that. And it's in Gemini. So Gemini is partly about trade. And then you've got Saturn, the delayer. K2 is kind of a destroyer, and then Pluto, the wrecking ball, looking across the zodiac. So at Gemini and Mercury. So a lot going on here. And another thing too we have is, you know, Neptune, one of the outer planets, is in Aquarius right now. So Aquarius is all about like the mass of people, like the we the people. And Neptune is all about delusion. So Neptune is delusional. You know, it doesn't see things clearly. So to me, this is saying too, is the people aren't seeing what's going on clearly. And that is, you know, that's lending itself to this polarization and all this infighting among the people. And then, you know, a note too is June 14th and 15th in Scorpio. Scorpio is deep-seated issues, deep emotions, hidden things, secrets. You've got Jupiter retrograde, which is, Jupiter's a teacher, but when it's retrograde, it's all about anger. It teaches hard lessons. And you've got the moon in there too, and the moon is our consciousness. You know, it's our mind, our intuition. So to me, this, you know, mid-month in June, you're going to see secrets being revealed that people are going to be angry about, or someone's going to spill the beans because they're angry. So interesting month, like I was saying. All right, so some dates real quick in June. So as I mentioned, June 1st and 2nd, Mars is at 16 degrees of Gemini. So, and this is that eclipse degree, so it's going to prime the eclipse. So definitely, Mars 16 degrees in Gemini, it's going to be, angry communication. And then the sun's going to cross that hot spot on July 2nd. So, within just a month. And again, Mars is out of bounds in June. It's got that 23, it's beyond limits of declination, so it's 23 degrees out of declination. So just like that 27 degrees out of bounds on 9/11, 2001. So, anger is at a peak. Anger and fury is at a high point. What else do I have here? And then, oh yeah, so June this year, Mars is in Ardira. So Ardira is a nakshatra, so it's a mini constellation. That in the mini constellations, the nakshatras make up the 12 signs. So Ardira is a nakshatra of tragic events, and Ardira's symbol is a teardrop. And this was also active in September of 2001. So this mini constellation that is part of Gemini. So it's so tragic events again this month. June 12th through the 14th. So we've got that Mars closely conjunct, so right near Rahu. So Rahu expands Mars's volatility. So definitely explosive events. And then Mars and Rahu will be directly aspecting Saturn on June 14th, so looking right at Saturn. So when Mars and Saturn come together, there's a battleground. So, and setbacks too, setbacks, delays, problems, causing frustration and anger. June 15th through the 18th, you've got Mars, Mercury, and Rahu all conjunct, all very close together. So breakdown of travel. So this is the 15th through the 18th of June. Breakdown of travel, communications, trade, computer systems. And then June 17th, you've got a full moon with Rahu and Ketu aspecting Mars, Mercury, and Rahu. So, full moon is, it's like the full moon is like our full consciousness laid bare. So during full moons, we can't sort of run from our emotions that are deep within us that we don't want to deal with. So you're going to have Saturn, Ketu, Pluto in the same house as that moon. And then you're going to have, this angry combination of Mars, Rahu, and Mercury looking at this full moon. So it'll be an uncomfortable full moon. I feel full moons sometimes days ahead of time. So we'll see how this goes. And then also on the 17th, on this full moon day, the sun comes into Gemini. So the sun comes into this angry communication land. So it'll be a good one. What else we have here? And then June 5th, so going back a few days, the moon's going to be in Gemini on June 5th. Where this Mars, Rahu, Mercury conjunction is. So the moon's a trigger because the moon is our consciousness and our, our attention, things we're focusing on. So these setbacks, these angry communication, these trade, travel chaos, the moon's gonna trigger that. And then June 17th through the 20th, moon's in Sagittarius, where all this destruction of our belief systems and all this anger around our belief systems is going on. So definitely a chain of events here for, challenges, problems, fears, all bringing change, change for the better in the end, but it's not always fun, when it's happening. So with all this communication strife going on, this is definitely, it's also a good time to kind of heal relations with others and, have some unpleasant conversations that have been put off for a while. And an important thing to realize here is that people who trigger our anger are showing us something about ourselves that we're not comfortable with. So bear that in mind through all this. You know, even politically, you know, it's like if you're on one side of the political spectrum, you know, and you don't like those people on the other side, they're showing you something about you that you don't like to look at. So that's just how it is. We deal with the people in our lives that we deserve to deal with. So right now we have the politics that we've deserved. But you know, if we change ourselves for the better, we get better people to deal with. We get a better experience in a better world. But you know, we have to hold ourselves responsible. We can't just say, well, it's all their problem. You know, that it's that party's problem, because that's narcissism, and you know, narcissism's immature. So, you know, I can see some possibility for a you know, kind of a spiritual movement being born this summer. You know, a resurgence in spiritual beliefs. You know, not religious beliefs. You know, I'm not talking about like the dogma and the, you know, and the institutions of religion, but you know, your inner spirituality. You know, where you don't need a middleman. You don't need a clergyman or a clergy woman, you know, who's a middleman, middle woman, who's gonna, you know, be your broker to God. Like it's all about you and your spirituality. So I could see spirituality catching on this summer because of these events we're gonna deal with in June and July and onward. And that would be really good to sort of guide us through all this. What else? So definitely a very spiritual and transformational time. I can't stress that enough. So I've said a mouthful, but thanks for tuning in today. I hope you get something out of this. And definitely check out my website, thecosmicalchemist.com. You can get a Vedic astrology reading from me on there. One thing you can do is you can see how your birth chart syncs up with the current events, you know, the events for June. I'll be doing these videos monthly, so you can see how your personal astrology syncs up with the astrology of the times and how that's going to affect you, because it affects everyone differently. Not everyone is equally affected by these astrological events. The more similar that your birth chart is to the chart of the current events, then the more things in your chart get activated, and the more relevant the current events are for you, basically. So again, my site is thecosmicalchemist.com. You can get one of these Vedic astrology readings from me. I also do rune readings. So runes are the old symbolic language of the ancient Germanic people, you know, the Norse and the Viking cultures. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later on.